Hey guys, so here we are. I'm tired today, really tired. My body's super sore from all these workouts, and it's cold out. I love the snow, but it's cold. It's so cold. So check in, how was yesterday? How'd you guys do with your intentions yesterday? How'd you do with self-care and disconnecting? I disconnected for a while yesterday and it was great, it was hard. I kept looking at my phone or, going to check it periodically, but I turned it off, I turned it off and, that's when I found it the easiest to just leave it alone, is when I shut it off. If it's on and I know it's on, I can easily go over and flip it over and check it, and look at what's going on. So for me, I had to shut it off, and know that it was off. But I did that for a few hours yesterday, which is huge for me. And I think it's great. I think I'm going to start to make a habit of that. Not necessarily all day, every day, like during the daytime periods, but at least once a day, take a couple hours to disconnect and shut it all off. As for me, I need that time to just be present in the moment and just focus on what's going on in front of me. I also need the disconnect from all the technology, I really do. I think it's a blessing. I'm extremely grateful for the technology, but at the same time, it overwhelms me. My head hurts after a while. I get frustrated. I get irritable, so there's just so much going on. So aside from work and doing my videos, there's going to be time frames in my life where, I connect and I do that, but there's also going to be set times that I'm away from it all for a while, a couple hours, nothing huge, just taking steps towards making it a habit. Like I've talked about on numerous other topics, I have to actually do it and consistently do it to make it a habit of mine. It's the same with working out or getting up early or any of that stuff. So today my intention card is forgiveness, and I think it's great because I've been talking a lot this week about forgiving yourself, and accepting yourself for who you are today. And another thing, I had already planned on what I was going to read today. Actually yesterday or the day before, I planned it out how I was going to read it today and then tomorrow for the last 2 days of the week. And I think it's great, because I've brought up a lot of times this week too, talking about the power of you, how powerful you are, your voice, your actions, what you do every day. And part of that power is living an intention-filled life, a purpose-filled life. And I want to read you guys a story. It's kind of long, so I'm probably going to read some of it today and then read some of it tomorrow. If we get through it today, then we get through it. That'd be great. But if not, that's okay too. I planned on 2 days for this book. It's a small book called The Butterfly Effect, but there's a lot in here. So we're going to read through that in a couple minutes, start to read through it. And like I said, if we don't make it through it all today, then that's fine. We'll pick it up tomorrow. If we do make it through it today, then I'll start something new tomorrow. But forgiving yourself is the first step to being able to live an intention-filled life, a purposeful life. If we're caught up in all of that guilt and shame that comes along with everything that we haven't forgiven ourselves for, how are we ever going to move forward? For me, I was very ashamed of my life, my past, for a long time. And until I started to forgive myself and accept that for who I am today and what it's made me today, and see the, power in that, I wasn't able to start moving forward. It was about 8 months ago that I actually started to accept myself for who I am, and I've began to move forward. And it's been amazing, so I really hope that, you guys can see that and see how powerful you really are, and how much potential you have. Each one of us is unique, each one of us was made different for a different reason, and you have a purpose, and I hope that you can find it. So I'm going to read my Demi Lovato reading today because, again, I liked that. So I'm going to read that. And, again, I'll post the titles of the books in the comments after it's all over. Done. Oh, wait. While I'm thinking about that, let me put this other comment in there quick. This one's our resources. And I'll put this up every video that I do so you guys have access to it. Hi, Nelly. I don't know who else is watching. That's the first one that's showed me. But all right, let's get into this one real quick so we can start reading the butterfly effect. Hope everyone's day is going good. Mine's been productive this morning, and I hope all yours has been as well. I didn't want to get up this morning, but I did. I got up and I did a really good workout, and I ate already, which is huge for me. Had a protein shake, drove out here, and here I am, making progress in life. Tired today, but I'm taking the steps, putting the one foot in front of the other, regardless of how I feel. Because I'd love to lay in bed today. I don't know why, but I'd love to be laying in my bed right now, doing nothing, just isolating. So there's that, but here we are, and we're going to take action steps together, guys. All right, April 16th. Do something. Your future self will thank you for it. That's a quote from a Nike ad. This is why I love this book. It's just so random. All the decisions you make today in your life affect you in the long run. The things that you're telling yourself, the things you're putting into your body, the people you're surrounding yourself with, they stay with you. Whether it be 10 days or 10 years from now, it's important to be mindful of how you treat yourself. With this in mind, it is so important to think about the bigger picture. Goal. Every time you have a self-destructive thought, tell yourself the exact opposite. Watch how quickly your behavior can change when you're being mindful and staying positive. And I'm sure you guys can understand why I love this reading so much based on this week's topics of discussion. It literally sums up in a paragraph everything that I've been talking about, changing those mindsets, being positive, forgiving yourself, what you're putting out there, the people you're surrounding yourself with, your relationships. I talked about that a lot yesterday, the relationships you have in your life. When I was in active addiction, I surrounded myself with people who are like-minded, who are on the same level as me, wanted the same things out of life that I did, which was just to party all the time and do the same stuff every day, live this vicious cycle. And today I surround myself with people that are spiritually the same as me. They have these same goals. They want to do something better with their lives. They're productive. They're independent. Those are the people that I surround myself with today. And I do that on purpose. I attract those people because that's how I live today, but I also place people in my life specifically. There's nobody in my life that's there by accident. Even with people who just come into my life, I don't keep them around if it's not a positive mind frame, if it's not something that benefits me and the things that I want to do with my life. And I don't say that as like I'm using them or like, in any of that. It means, I surround myself with like-minded people. Because I want to succeed, and I can't have people around me in my circle that are going to bring me down, and I think that's huge. I think it's huge to surround yourself with like-minded people, keep people that are on the same page as you in your circle to motivate you, to encourage you, to walk hand in hand with you, that really stuck out to me with this, with who you surround yourself with, whether it be 10 days or 10 years from now, it will affect you in the long run. And it's the same with the decisions that you make, the thoughts that you have, which is why I've been so incessant on talking about your thought processes and what you put into your mind. Or not what you put into your mind, what you do with the thoughts that are in your mind. So yeah, I really liked that today. I did. So the goal, again, is every time you have a self-destructive thought, tell yourself the exact opposite. And I know there's a few of you that are watching this right now that can relate to that, or that are struggling with that right now. So, tell yourself the exact opposite. If you don't know how to turn something positive, if you think something that is against you, negative against you as a human, think the exact opposite of whatever that thought is. I know it's not going to feel natural, but do it anyways. Watch how quickly your behavior can change when you're being mindful and staying positive. All right, so let's catch up on this real quick. Hi, Kaylin. Hi, David. Hi, Edson. Tracy. Nice hair, Kay. Thanks, Gara. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Yeah, exactly, David. I like that too. Yeah, I mean, it really makes a difference who you put into your life today. So, be mindful of that. Surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up and keep you motivated. That's part of what ROCovery does. We're all like-minded. We band together, and we have generally the same idea of goals. We want to do something better. We want to grow in some way. And that's recovery. That's what recovery is about. Alcohol and substances are the beginning of that. Recovery is about doing those next things and pushing yourself past your comfortability and everything that you've known, your fears, get out there and do it, and watch who you put in your life. They'll bring you down quicker than you can bring them up, so, all right. Yeah, I think the coat, David, she's killing the blue today. He says, I think the coat is making my hair look brighter because it did not look this bright yesterday. All right, so I'm going to jump into this one now because it's, like I said, it's semi-long, so it's going to take a minute to read some of this. And like I said, I'll get through it as much as I can. If we hit the 12:30 mark, I'll cut off and I'll pick it up again tomorrow. But I really liked this too. Brian Quinn gave me this book, and I find it ironic that he talked about butterflies, not knowing that he had talked about butterflies, and then it got brought up again after that. And I don't think it's a coincidence, So I was looking through the books that he gave me, and this is one that I had thought about a couple times, but it's a story. So I hadn't really understood how I could incorporate it yet, And, I decided, why not just break it into 2 reading sessions? Why not just break it down and, read it twice? What else do we have to do here? And I'm sure that if we can find a common ground in the fact that this is going to be effective in one way or another to someone out there. So the gist of this is, it's called The Butterfly Effect, How Your Life Matters. And pretty much this guy has a conversation with somebody in his life, and the conversation changes the trajectory of his life. The guy really shows him that he has a purpose and a meaning. And it changes everything that Andy does, from there on out, how he writes, what he puts into things. And it's really like, the gist is that every single thing you do matters, no matter what it is, no matter how mundane the task is, whatever you're doing, it matters, and it has a ripple effect, to the rest of your life. And it really comes down to how powerful you are as a human being, how that power that I keep talking about that we each have inside of us. All right. David, I can't wait until the doors open again at ROCovery. Me too. We'll get there, bud. Just hang in. And Keirstan, I really need lots of books, please. Absolutely. I can connect you. We'll get there, Nellie. We'll talk offline about it. All right. Let's start with this here. How significant is my life? Do I make a difference when I move, when I act, when I do something? Does the universe notice? Do I really matter? In 1963, Edward Lorenz presented a hypothesis to the New York Academy of Science. His theory, stated simply, was that a butterfly could flap its wings and set molecules of air in motion, which would move other molecules of air, in turn moving more molecules of air, eventually capable of starting a hurricane on the other side of the planet. Lorenz and his ideas were literally laughed out of the conference. What he had proposed was ridiculous. It was preposterous, but it was fascinating. Therefore, because of the idea's charm and intrigue, the so-called butterfly effect became a staple of science fiction, remaining for decades a combination of myth and legend spread only by comic books and bad movies. So imagine the scientific community's shock and surprise when, more than 30 years after the possibility was introduced, physics professors working from colleges and universities worldwide came to the conclusion that the butterfly effect was authentic, accurate, and viable. Soon after, it was accorded the status of a law, known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. This principle has proven to be a force encompassing more than mere butterfly wings. Science has shown the butterfly effect to engage with the first movement of any form of matter, including people. Did you know that there once existed a single man who, more than a century ago, made one move that still dramatically affects how you live today? He was a 34-year-old school teacher, but on the hot, humid day of July 2nd, 1863, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain was in the fight of his life. A former professor of rhetoric from Bowdoin College, Maine, he was now a colonel in the Union Army. Chamberlain stood at the far left edge of a group of 80,000 men strung out in a line across fields and hills, stretching all the way to a little town called Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Earlier that day, a Colonel Vincent had placed Chamberlain and his men of the 20th Maine at the end of that line, saying, "Whatever you do, you can't let them get through here." Chamberlain couldn't withdraw, and he knew it. If the Confederate Army overran them, the rebels would gain the high ground, and the Union Army would be quickly defeated. In essence, 80,000 men would be caught from behind on a downhill charge with no protection. To win, the gray-clad Confederates would have to come through Chamberlain. At 2:30 p.m., the first charge came from the 15th and 47th Alabama regiments. They attacked uphill, running as fast as they could and firing at Chamberlain's men, who were stationed behind a rock wall they had thrown up that very morning. The 20th Maine stopped the rebel charge, and pushed them back down the slope, only to face a second, then a third charge. On the fourth assault, Chamberlain was knocked down by a bullet that had hit him dead center in the belt buckle. Realizing that it wasn't seriously hurt, the colonel scrambled to his feet, continuing to fight. Again, they halted the enemy's charge, and again, the rebels retreated down the hill. At that time in history, battles were fought with artillery and small arms ammunition. The struggles were close, face-to-face affairs. With their fourth charge, the Confederates almost made it to the wall, a thigh-high stack of flat rocks that ran almost 110 yards in length. As they waited for the next charge, Chamberlain felt sorry for his men. He later recalled, "Their leader had no real knowledge of warfare or tactics. I was only a stubborn man, and that was my greatest advantage in this fight. I had, deep within me, the inability to do nothing." Chamberlain continued, "I knew I may die, but I also knew that I would not die with a bullet in my back. I would not die in retreat. I am at least like the Apostle Paul, who wrote, 'This one thing I do, I press toward the mark.'" The attack came again. On this, the fifth charge, the 15th and 47th Alabama broke open the wall, and the fighting raged on both sides. Without time to reload, the men were swinging their rifles at each other and brawling with fists and knives. Somehow, the 20th Maine pushed the rebels downhill another time. After that fifth broken charge, Chamberlain's younger brother, Tom, appeared with Sergeant Tozier, an old, hard-nosed soldier. Tozier had a thick wad of torn shirt stuck in a hole in his shoulder where he had been wounded. "No help from the 83rd, the sergeant said. They're shot to ribbons, and all they can do is extend the line a bit. We're getting murdered on our flank." "Can we extend?" Chamberlain asked. "There's nothing to extend," Tom answered. "More than half our men are down." It was true. Chamberlain's command had started in Bangor, Maine, 6 months earlier with 1,000 men. They'd started that morning with 300. Now they were down to 80. "How are we for ammunition?" the colonel asked. "We've been shooting a lot," was his brother's answer. "I know we've been shooting a lot," Chamberlain snapped. "I want to know how we're holding out. How much ammunition do we have left?" As Tom ran to check, a 12-year-old lookout had climbed a tree. He yelled, "They're forming up again, Colonel." Chamberlain looked up to see the boy pointing down the hill. "They're forming up right now, and they've been reinforced." "Sir, there's a lot more of them this time." At that moment, a messenger stumbled into their midst. Out of breath, he said, "Sir, Colonel Chamberlain, sir. Colonel Vincent is dead." "Are you sure, soldier?" Yes, sir, he gasped. "He was shot right at the first of the fight. They were firmed up by Weed's brigade, but now Weeds is dead. They moved Hazlitt's battery up top. Hazlitt's dead too." Chamberlain's brother came running back. "Joshua," he said, "we are out. 1-2 rounds per man at the most. Some of the men don't have anything at all." Chamberlain turned to a thin man standing on his right. It was First Sergeant Ellis Spear. "Spear," he ordered, "tell the boys to take the ammunition from the wounded and the dead." "We did that last time, sir," Spear replied. "Maybe we should think about pulling out." Chamberlain responded grimly, "We will not be pulling out, Sergeant. Carry out my orders, please." "Colonel," Sergeant Tozier spoke up. "We won't hold them again, sir. You know we won't." "Joshua," it was his brother. "Here they come. Here they come." Chamberlain stepped to the top of the wall in full view, crossing his arms and staring down at the advancing enemy. The 15th and 47th Alabama, with their pale yellow-gray uniforms, now reinforced by a Texas regiment, moved up the hill as their high-pitched shriek, the rebel yell, coursed up towards Chamberlain and his men. Sergeant Spear was standing at the colonel's feet. Sergeant Tozier, Chamberlain's brother Tom, and Lieutenant Melcher, the flag-bearer, were huddled below. "Joshua," his brother said, "do something. Give an order." Chamberlain stood there for a moment, deep in thought, quickly sorting the situation. "We can't retreat," he thought. "We can't stay here. When I am faced with the choice of doing nothing, or doing something, I will always choose to act." He turned his back on the advancing rebels, looked down at his men, and he said, "Fix bayonets." At first, no one moved. They just stared at him with their mouths open. "Fix your bayonets now," he commanded again. "Execute a great right wheel of the entire regiment. Swing the left first. Do it now." Lieutenant Melcher spoke first, confused. "Sir," he asked, "what is a great right wheel?" But the colonel had already jumped off the wall and was moving to the next group of men. Sergeant Tozier answered the question. "He means to charge, son. A great right wheel is an all-out charge." Then turning, the colonel pointed his sword directly downhill. Facing overwhelming odds, Chamberlain slashed his blade through the air, and with a power born of courage and fear, the schoolteacher from Maine roared, "Charge, charge, charge," to his men. The remaining 80 fighting men lifted their voices to match that of their leader. "Charge, charge," they cried, tumbling over the wall into a history about which most people in our country have never heard. For when the Confederate troops saw Chamberlain, the leader of the opposition, mount the wall, they immediately stopped, unsure as to what was happening. When the colonel pointed his sword toward them and commanded his men to charge, they turned and ran. Many threw down their loaded weapons. The rebels were certain that these were not the same soldiers they had been facing. Surely these men had been reinforced, they thought. A beaten regiment would not charge. In less than 5 minutes, Chamberlain had his sword on the collarbone of a Confederate captain. "You, sir, are my prisoner," he stated. The men turned around a fully loaded Navy Colt revolver and offered it to Chamberlain. "Yes, sir," he answered, "I am." Within 5 more minutes, that ragged group of 80 men under Chamberlain's command, without any ammunition, captured over 400 soldiers of the enemy. It's an amazing story, isn't it? And absolutely true. But here's what most people never consider. Historians have determined that had Chamberlain not charged that day, the rebels would have won at Gettysburg. Further, historians tell us, had the rebels won at Gettysburg, the South would have won the war, and the war itself would have been over by the end of summer. Most people assume that had the South won the war, today we would exist as 2 countries, the Union and the Confederacy. Historians, however, insist that if the South had won the war, we would now live on a territorial fragmented continent much like Europe. North America would be divided into 9 to 13 countries. Which means, when Hitler swept across Europe in the 1940s, had Chamberlain not charged on that afternoon so long ago, there would not have existed the United States of America to stand in the breach. When Hitler systematically invaded the islands of the South Pacific, there would not have been a country big enough, strong enough, wealthy enough, and populous enough to fight and win 2 wars on 2 fronts at the same time. The United States of America exists as it does today because of a single man, one 34-year-old schoolteacher, and one move he made more than a century ago. Don't you see? Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain is a human example of the butterfly effect. One man who made one move whose effects still ripple through your life today. And you are no less an example of the butterfly effect than Chamberlain was. Everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take matters. Not just to you, or your family, or your business, or your hometown. Everything you do matters to all of us forever. Alright, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to put this forgiveness card right here. I'm stopping right there. There's still a good chunk here to read. And we will read that together tomorrow. But just in the beginning of that, you know, one choice that somebody made to push past their fear and their uncomfortability and their unknown, you know, changed the history of America. You know, and that's just a foundation of what the rest of this story is about to tell you tomorrow. You know, you guys are powerful, absolutely powerful. Trust yourselves, you know, trust yourselves and be mindful of the fact that every single thing you do matters. I read something earlier that was talking about, you know, we're conscious of the things that we do and say to like our loved ones, our family, our friends, you know, our coworkers. We're very conscious of that for the most part. But like what we say to like a gas station attendant or something, we don't really think about that. You know, but I've talked about this before. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what that's going to carry on like in their life. You know, I could go in and be very kind to them, or I could be very rude to them, you know, and just treat them like they don't even matter. And I don't know what they're going to take that for and take it with them out into the world. They could then cause a butterfly effect and treat people the same way, or treat their family negatively because they were treated like crap at work, you know. Or I could go in and I could be nice and I could smile and I could be kind and loving and compassionate, and that could carry, you know, and they could treat the next customer like that, or their family like that, or, you know, whoever. But, you know, when I read that earlier about how mindful we are of how we affect the people that are closest to us and how unmindful we are to the people that aren't close to us, you know, that really hit home for me. You know, I talked about it earlier this week, like being kind to everyone that I come in contact with. And I guess I really never looked at it as far as a butterfly effect, but it definitely puts it in perspective. You know, it's kind of like that ripple effect. You know, you drop a pebble in a lake and the ripples go on a lot longer than that pebble does, you know. You know, so be mindful of that today. Our intention word for today is forgiveness. So I'm going to ask you guys to work on forgiving, you know, today. Forgiving yourself first and foremost, before anything else. You know, anything that you've done or have been through isn't, you know, your makeup. It isn't who you are as a person. All that is experiences, and it will build you. It'll build your character. But be grateful for it. You know, forgive yourself for it. And put the power in. You know, put the power in your life today. And you can't do that without forgiving yourself. You have to forgive yourself in order to move forward. And use your power that is in each and every one of us. So with that, I'm going to head out, and I will check in with you guys tomorrow on how you're doing with your intention of forgiveness today. And I'm going to, you know, work on that within myself as well. I've forgiven myself for a lot of my past stuff, but more recently, I've talked about this before, you know, over the last month or so, I haven't been the greatest that I could be. And, you know, I need to work on forgiving myself for that and moving forward. You know, and doing the next right thing. I've been doing the next right thing for a little while now, coming out of that slum that I was in. But I could forgive myself for it. I still beat myself up for it a little bit here and there. So I will also be working on that, and I will take an inventory tonight about it, and then check in with you guys tomorrow. But I hope you guys have a great day, you know, and work on forgiving yourself. And I hope that you guys tune in to hear the rest of this tomorrow. All right. Have a good day, guys.